Okay, we're officially into the second half of the year. Now, the past couple of months may have been stressful for the country with the elections and increased petrol and electricity prices. That's always stressful for all of us. And our next guest now is here to help us make the rest of the year a little bit less stressful and easier. Richard Sutton penned the stress code from, it's called The Stress Code From Surviving to Thriving. This is the book that we're going to be chatting about with Richard. The book offers practical tools and skills to help us understand and manage stress. He joins me now in studio. Richard, good to see you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, you've worked with elite athletes, leaders of companies and so forth. And one of the things that you find is that mental health issues are becoming a lot more prevalent. Why is that?
It's very hard to say why, because it's multifactorial. But if you're looking at statistics at the moment, there was a study that was published a couple of years ago looking at mental health statistics in South Africa, in fact, 8 diverse regions. And at the moment, according to the study, we're looking at about 13% of our population suffering from depression.
Yeah.
Compared to other countries in the world, it's considerably higher.
That is very high. Now, we've seen many books of this nature, talking about stress and how you can maybe overcome it. What's the key difference within your book or your guide?
So I think the first thing we have to understand is that stress is not the enemy. Our greatest accomplishments, our greatest achievements are actually born in crisis and in stress. It's where we dig deep and it's where we find this extra gear. So the narrative is that stress is not necessarily a negative. It can actually be a positive in your life if you know how to harness it. And harnessing it is multifactorial as well, just knowing when to turn it on, when to turn it off. And
yeah. And I mean, stress has a major effect on your body. What's the first thing you do, a person does? Is it change behavior, change routine? I know you do talk about that in your book as well.
The first thing one does in order to manage stress?
Yes.
So in order to manage stress, it's about almost a four-tiered process. The first is to shift your mindset, to understand that stress is not the enemy and it can be an advantage in your life. The second is really to connect to people. When we stress, we often become insular and isolated. And one of the most important things is really to reach out and galvanize. And that's where we actually have major biological shifts that enhance our ability to withstand stress. The fourth is to understand it so well that you can shut it down at will. You can shut stress off. There's a system in the body, and it's actually in the book. Yeah. And the last thing is positive lifestyle behaviors, the exercise, the eating well, the supplements. These are all things that can really help you become resilient to stress.
You repeated twice now that stress, you can use stress as an advantage or take advantage of it. How do you do that?
So the thing is about stress, the most interesting thing happens is when we get stressed, we unify 4 systems of the body: the hormonal system, the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the immune system, all come together to actually uplift our capabilities and capacities. And if we know how to channel that and not see it as a negative, it's absolutely amazing what we're able to achieve.
Yeah. You also advise in your book about taking supplements and dietary issues as well. Talk to us about that.
So certain supplements have the ability to actually blunt the stress responses. So those people who get over-aroused in a crisis or over-aroused in a stressful situation, you can take supplements like resveratrol, supplements like curcumin are very powerful in this regard. Yeah. And there's certain supplements that actually protect you from the negative or adverse effects of stress if you've been stressed for long periods of time.
I worry about supplements. How safe is it, though? I mean, and how do you even check that?
Well, supplements have been around for since the 1940s, and there's no regulation. So your concerns are 100% valid, and they say that about 97% of products that are on the shelves are not true to label. Yeah. In this respect, I mean, it doesn't write off all supplements completely, and there's some supplements that are absolutely exceptional, that are third-party tested. They've got certificates of authenticity. A lot of the foreign products are absolutely outstanding. We've got some local products that are really good. So it's really about going to a healthcare practitioner and getting the right supplements that have got this accreditation.
You also say avoid taking any chronic medications if you can, because we all rush to our doc whenever we're under stress, and we don't even know it's stress sometimes. And you know what? He's going to write us a note and say, go and get that.
So it's not about avoiding chronic medication, because a lot of people have to be on chronic medication. It's about just the proper use of chronic medication and not indiscriminate use and excessive prescription of these type of things. So if one can manage it through lifestyle and through health, that's the first prize, but there are instances and there are times where chronic medication is an absolute necessity.
Yeah. training and exercise as well. You mentioned that in your book. You talk about certain regimes and also not to overdo it as well. That can also be harmful.
So training and exercise, I mean, exercise is an absolutely invaluable commodity in terms of managing stress. And the reason why is it just changes your brain chemistry. And there's certain types of for exercise like swimming, which has a really remarkable effect on the stress axis itself. Swimming is a very calming activity, activates the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is the off button for stress. So swimming is unbelievable. Exercise just helps our physical resilience and physical capabilities in terms of withstanding the demands that are faced on us. And it also can create the activation of a subconscious set within the brain, which just kind of turns out that hyper focus, which is common in stressful situations.
You use the phrase becoming the CEO of your health. I like that, actually. And it actually does make sense. You have to start learning how to look after yourself in a certain way.
Very much so, very absolutely. You know, and the thing is, no one's going to look after you for you, and it's something that we have to all take responsibility for.
You also looked in your book as well, experiencing ailments. Typically, see that young people now are experiencing ailments that are usually found in the older generation. Why is that happening?
Well, if you think about, think about when we were kids. I mean, it was so different. You know, the demands that children are faced with today, from expectations in a school environments, the technology element, the social media element, the society is rapid, and it's just accelerating. I don't think kids have the maturity, and I don't think they have the ability to really cope with some of the emotional pressures and some of the more kind of sophisticated demands that are placed on them.
All right, Richard, fantastic stuff. It's called the stress code. I'm actually going to, I'll take some of your advice here when it comes to the exercise, because I'm lazy. Proper lazy. All right, fantastic. It's the stress code from surviving to thriving. Richard Sutton there joining us in studio. Thank you.